Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are undertaking a deep dive that feels less like sifting through data and more like sitting with a really moving personal reflection.
It's very different from our usual material.
It is. The source for our conversation is this heartfelt message shared by Emma Heming Willis. She talks about celebrating the holidays while caring for her husband, Bruce Willis, who is living with frontotemporal dementia, or FTD.
And it's such an exceptional piece of source material. It's so poignant because it strips away the celebrity, the public persona, and gets right to the raw, complicated emotional reality of a progressive illness.
Absolutely.
Emma Heming Willis, she offers an emotional anchor point, not just for families dealing with dementia, but really for anyone navigating a profound, painful life change during a season that is, culturally supposed to be all about simple happiness.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Our sources, they really capture this brutal honesty of her struggle. How do you hold on to the spirit of the holidays when the very dynamism of your family life, your partner, has fundamentally changed? So our mission today is to move beyond the headline. We want to truly explore how these immense life transitions redefine traditions, forcing families to wrestle with and ultimately accept this complex, simultaneous presence of both grief and joy.
It's a huge challenge. And that word you used, wrestle.
I think that's right. It feels like the most challenging definition of resilience we could possibly analyze.
Resilience is exactly the right word. And that core paradox you mentioned, the simultaneous presence of grief and joy, that's what makes her reflection so universal, even though the specifics are, of course, unique to FTD.
How so?
Well, we're all conditioned to think of the holidays as this time of, uninterrupted, carefree joy. But when an illness that targets identity and function comes into the picture, as Emma observes, that joy quickly becomes tangled with grief.
Tangled with grief. That's such a powerful phrase.
It is. And this isn't just a surface-level sadness. It's a deep, interwoven emotional tapestry where acceptance, really, it becomes a survival mechanism.
So that initial insight is foundational then. The holidays don't just disappear when dementia enters your life.
No, they can't.
They fundamentally change. And that willingness to redefine the season, to stop demanding that the past be recreated, that seems to be where the path forward begins.
It has to be.
We're going to explore what that change looks like. We'll move from the weight of memory to the emotional labor required in just daily tasks, and then finally connect that lived experience to the specific context of FTD and Bruce Willis's incredible legacy.
It's a powerful roadmap. And what makes it so valuable is its honesty. It gives all of us permission to acknowledge that change is painful, even when love endures. We'll be using her narrative as a structure to understand the psychological and even the neurological reality of navigating this specific form of loss.
To really understand the intensity of the present, I think we have to first appreciate the then. Emma provides these beautifully vivid, fond recollections of holidays past.
Yes, she does.
And she positions Bruce Willis as this irreplaceable, enthusiastic heart of their family celebrations.
That phrase, enthusiastic heart, it carries so much weight, doesn't it? It suggests he wasn't just showing up for the festivities. He was the festivities.
He was the source of the energy.
He was the source of the dynamic energy, the one driving the joy. And the source material, it details this enthusiasm, his love for the cheer, his active role in the gatherings, the specific traditions they had year after year.
And that past rhythm is so critical because it's the blueprint. It's what the present reality is constantly being measured against.
Exactly, the blueprint.
And it's the small sensory details that really ground this for the listener. We hear about him making pancakes, taking the kids out for walks in the snow.
These aren't just events. They're moments steeped in sensory, kinesthetic memory. You can almost smell the batter, right?
You can. Or hear the boots crunching in the snow, the feeling of shared energetic activity. These are the anchors of a vibrant family.
And those anchors are precisely why the grief is so complex. With FTD, the person is still physically present. So all those sensory triggers, the sights, the sounds, the smells of the season, they fire off these flawless, vivid memories of the past.
So your brain perfectly recalls the joy.
Perfectly, it recalls the dynamic. But the expressive, enthusiastic person who generated that joy, they can no longer participate in the same way.
And this is where we arrive at that central, painful conflict she describes. Dementia doesn't erase those beautiful memories.
No, it makes them sharper, almost.
But it actively creates what she calls a canyon between that energetic past and the present reality.
The metaphor of the canyon is, it's maybe the single most precise psychological articulation of what it means to care for someone with a progressive cognitive illness. It's so good.
It's not just a small valley.
Not at all. It's a chasm. It implies distance, separation, and permanence.
Yeah.
The person is physically there sitting right next to you, but the interactive, communicative part that defined them is now separated by this unbridgeable cognitive distance.
Let's dig into that a little. What FTD specifically tells us about this canyon. Frontotemporal dementia, it targets the frontal and temporal lobes.
Right. And the frontal lobe is, it's the brain CEO. It's the center for executive function, for personality, for emotional regulation.
All the things required to be the enthusiastic heart of the celebration.
Exactly. Unlike Alzheimer's, which often spares those frontal abilities at first, FTD can strip away the very mechanisms you need for planning, for initiating activity, for expressing that high-energy emotion. When Emma remembers Bruce as the enthusiast, she's remembering a man whose frontal lobe was fully intact.
So the canyon is the visible, painful manifestation of that neurological change.
It is. It truly is.
So when a family member is in that moment, they're experiencing what psychologists call ambiguous loss, right? The person is physically here, but psychologically gone.
Functionally gone, yes. And the emotional impact of having that perfect memory side by side with the current reality is just, it's exhausting.
The memory is a source of love, but the contrast.
The contrast turns it into an active source of pain, especially during holidays.
Yeah.
You're effectively grieving the loss of a shared future and a shared dynamic, while at the same time trying to appreciate the person who's right in front of you.
It's a constant mental friction.
It is a continuous process of adjusting expectations. And that friction, that constant comparison between then and now, that is the weight of the canyon.
And this weight, it doesn't just fall on Emma. It impacts the entire family. If Bruce was the engine, his diminished role creates a vacuum.
A vacuum that everyone else has to fill. They have to increase their emotional labor, their administrative roles. The challenge is immense.
Yeah.
You have to acknowledge the pain of the canyon without letting that huge gap swallow the entire holiday.
And the emotional stakes are highest during celebration.
Of course, because traditions thrive on predictability, on repetition. When the main anchor point of that tradition is functionally altered, the family feels the loss of the role, the capability, the shared rhythm. It's not just the person.
It's a successive loss.
It's a continuous successive loss. And that is often more devastating than the final loss itself, because you have to live in that dissonance, sometimes for years. The canyon is a reminder that the pain is active and ongoing.
And that struggle, trying to stay in the present while being pulled back by the weight of memory, that leads us right into how this shows up in the smallest, most routine tasks.
So let's transition to the raw honesty Emma shared about the daily cost of this. These are the details that are so universally relatable, I think. They move beyond the abstract idea of FTD and land on these small, mundane tasks that suddenly become enormous symbols of what's missing. The source material uses the specific example of putting up the holiday lights. The holiday lights are a perfect microcosm of a partnership dynamic. It's a task that often involves teamwork, planning, some technical skill,
Execution, yeah.
all functions governed by the frontal lobe, which FTD targets. So when the person who always led that effort can no longer do it, the task doesn't just get physically harder for the partner taking it over.
It becomes a symbol.
A direct symbol of the shift in roles and capabilities.
She notes that she finds herself tackling tasks Bruce once led, and she even says that he trained her well. That line is fascinating to me.
It's so layered.
It is. It's a pragmatic recognition of her own competence, sure, but there's a deep emotional undertone. It's the difference between doing something as a choice and being forced to do it because a necessary part of your partnership is gone.
That is the definition of increased emotional labor in caregiving. You are mourning the loss of the teammate, the co-pilot, while you're also having to step up and perform the role of pilot, navigator, and engineer all at once.
Often without complaint.
And that line, "He trained me well," it's a tribute to their past relationship, but it also just highlights the isolation of the present solo effort. The competence is forced by necessity, which adds a layer of sadness to the resilience.
This is where her analysis of grief becomes so nuanced and valuable. Emma describes catching herself muttering his name while she's struggling with these new tasks.
This muttering isn't just a habit. I think it's a neurological reflex. It's the unconscious mind, under stress, searching for the teammate who used to manage this specific demand.
It's like reaching for a phone that isn't there.
Exactly. Or muttering a partner's name for input. It just shows how deeply ingrained those partnership roles become in our cognitive routines. The complexity of the task forces her, for a moment, back into the role of the partner who expected help.
But then she adds this critical layer of emotional self-awareness. She clarifies that the muttering is not out of anger at him, never, but it's a manifestation of missing his presence, his leadership.
And that distinction is absolutely vital for anyone listening who might be navigating something similar.
Why so vital?
Because in times of stress, it is so easy for a caregiver's frustration with the situation, the logistics, the permanence, the workload, to spill over and become resentment at the person. Emma is consciously drawing a line. The anger is directed at the disease, at the absence of that functional dynamic, not at Bruce. She misses the leader, the man of action, the problem solver. She misses the other half of the unit.
So if the muttering is a search for the old norm and the frustration isn't at him, she isolates the anger she does feel. Anger that the change itself is permanent, that the difference is another reminder of how things are different.
And that anger at permanence is fundamentally anger at the injustice of FTD. It is a necessary, healthy, emotional outlet. The caregiver is wrestling with the fact that this isn't a temporary illness, there's no recovery phase. This is the new long-term reality.
That stringing the lights alone is the tradition now.
Yes, and that realization sparks the anger. It allows her to process her frustration with the illness without damaging the love she has for her husband. For any listener in that role, just identifying the source of the anger. Is it the logistics, the disease, the lost future? That's the first step toward managing it constructively.
It sounds like this phase is just defined by constant emotional auditing. You're always checking your feelings, separating the trauma of the disease from the love for the person.
Acknowledging the grief that bubbles up during what should be a joyful routine. It's a continuous, high-energy, internal process.
That has to be exhausting.
It is. And it requires a huge mental shift. You have to fight that instinctive pull back into the canyon of the past every time a routine task becomes a new solo endeavor. But this struggle, ultimately, it leads to the path of action and resilience, which is where her message pivots.
And the narrative does shift here very powerfully. It moves from acknowledging the pain to an active commitment to resilience. Emma's message is ultimately about this determination to create new memories and honor the enduring spirit of family, even because of the profound loss. This is adaptation in action.
And this isn't just surviving, this is thriving within the limits. It demonstrates the active component of acceptance. Acceptance is so often misinterpreted as just, resignation.
Giving up.
Right. But in this context, it means acknowledging the fixed constraints of FTD and consciously choosing to invest energy into building something new within those boundaries. It's a determined, forward-looking process.
We see the practical results of this in the source material. The family will still gather, but now the new tradition is that Emma takes on the role of making their family's favorite pancakes.
The pancakes, they come back.
They do. She is stepping into a previously established role, giving it continuity, but with a different actor.
The pancakes, which were that key sensory detail we talked about, now become a symbol of adaptive tradition. The ritual is preserved, which is so essential for the family's sense of comfort, especially for the children.
The core ingredient, the shared family moment, is still there.
It remains. By intentionally performing this action, she ensures that the family celebration remains focused on connection and shared presence, rather than dwelling on the missing capacity.
And she highlights the other continued traditions. Unwrapping presents, gathering for breakfast, watching a holiday movie, laughing and hugging. These actions confirm that despite the neurological changes, the fundamental capacity for emotional connection and love is still solid.
And that capacity for connection is vital. While FTD impacts language and behavior, the core relationship bonds and the capacity to appreciate warmth, presence, physical touch, those often endure. Resilience means identifying those non-negotiable traditions that rely on connection over cognitive skill, and you prioritize them fiercely.
The simple act of hugging, for example.
It bypasses the linguistic canyon entirely.
This brings us to what I think is Emma's most profound psychological insight. The powerful lesson in acceptance, the need to hold both joy and grief at the same time. She states it so clearly. The family will still laugh and hug, and they will almost certainly cry.
This is the mature integration of emotion that often defines highly resilient people. It rejects that artificial pressure that says holidays must be purely happy or that grief has to be quarantined until January.
You don't get neat little blocks of emotion.
When you live with a progressive, ambiguous loss, you live in a constant state of overlap.
So explain this blending, the laughter and the crying, as a resilient approach. Why is that emotional integration so critical for long-term survival here?
It's critical because trying to resist one emotion to preserve the other just leads to profound exhaustion and inauthenticity. If you force joy when grief is present, you're suppressing reality, which creates a huge backlog of unprocessed emotional labor.
And if you only allow the sadness?
You miss the moments of connection that still exist. So emotional integration is an act of self-preservation. The tears honor the past, the change, the effort required. The laughter celebrates the enduring love and the moments they still have today. It's an integrated emotional landscape that accepts the fullness of their reality.
I wonder, though, what are the risks for caregivers who can't make that separation when they try too hard to be only joyful for the family?
The primary risk is burnout, which often manifests as chronic resentment. Caregivers who try to maintain a facade of pure joy are essentially saying, the past must be recreated, and I must hide my pain to protect others.
It's unsustainable.
Completely. It depletes emotional reserves so quickly. Emma's willingness to say, we will cry, gives her whole family permission to be authentic. It lowers the collective emotional pressure. It transforms the holiday from a performance of happiness into an honest expression of family love and shared struggle.
And then she expands on this, urging other families on similar paths to accept the change and to actively look for pockets of new joy.
Pockets of new joy. It's such a powerful recalibration of expectation. It acknowledges that, grand, sweeping happiness might be inaccessible right now, but small, obtainable moments of lightness are not.
So these pockets might be a moment of nonverbal recognition from Bruce?
Or an unexpected shared laugh with the kids. Or even the pride in successfully making the pancakes. It shifts the focus from mourning what FTD has taken to actively observing and cherishing what remains and what is being built anew.
It requires a constant practice of mindfulness.
And gratitude in the face of so much adversity.
This section just beautifully validates that resilience isn't about ignoring pain. It's about acknowledging it fully, and then still choosing to show up for the celebration. The tears are part of the process, not a failure of the holiday spirit.
Exactly. And this acceptance ensures that the holiday remains focused on the central truth, the enduring love that compels the adaptation. They are honoring the man he was by passionately loving the man he is now and adapting their celebration to meet him exactly where he is.
Now we have to step back and provide the crucial context for all of this. Emma wisely reminds us that Bruce Willis is far more than his diagnosis.
So important to remember.
To truly appreciate the scale of the family's adaptation, we need to understand the arc of his life and career and the specific nature of the disease he's facing.
And understanding his professional legacy is essential because it really illustrates the specific, devastating cruelty of FTD in his case. Bruce Willis, born in 1955, rose to prominence by completely shattering the mold of the modern action hero.
His career was just explosive. His breakthrough role, John McClane in Die Hard in 1988, wasn't just a blockbuster, it was a cultural phenomenon.
It created a whole new archetype.
It did. McClane was the everyman action hero, resourceful, wisecracking, often beaten down, complaining loudly, but always resilient. He was defined by his verbal acuity and his ability to improvise under extreme stress.
And that verbal acuity, that improvisational skill, that is precisely why this diagnosis is so tragic. His entire brand was built on sharp dialogue and emotional expressiveness.
And we see his versatility outside of action, too. He earned critical acclaim in these dialogue-heavy dramas like Tarantino's Pulp Fiction.
In his quieter but so profoundly communicative role in The Sixth Sense in '99, his range was just remarkable.
And we can't overlook his comedic timing. His work on the TV series Moonlighting was famous for breaking the fourth wall for its rapid-fire, witty exchanges.
A total showcase of perfect linguistic function.
Films like The Whole Nine Yards further cemented that status as a master of deadpan delivery. And the source reminds us he's also a Grammy Award winner for his part in the charity song Respect Yourself.
So to sum it up, Bruce Willis's legacy is defined by communication, expression, and sharp executive function. And this directly sets the stage for the devastation of frontotemporal dementia, a disease that targets the areas of the brain responsible for those exact traits.
Let's clarify the diagnosis timeline for you listening. The initial public announcement came in the spring of 2022.
That's when the family shared the news of his aphasia diagnosis. Aphasia is a cognitive disorder that impairs the ability to communicate speech, writing, comprehension. And that initial diagnosis was the trigger for his retirement.
Because it directly affected his ability to act.
Exactly. And then in early 2023, the family provided the more specific diagnosis, frontotemporal dementia, or FTD. And it's so important we elaborate on what FTD means, especially compared to Alzheimer's. FTD is complex. It's an umbrella term for disorders affecting the frontal and temporal lobes. This is the region that controls judgment, executive function, behavior, language. So while Alzheimer's often starts with memory loss, FTD typically presents first with changes in personality or communication.
Which would explain the initial aphasia diagnosis.
It would. We see FTD manifesting in two primary ways relevant here. Primary progressive aphasia, which is the language issue, and behavioral variant FTD, which explains the changes in personality, initiative, and the enthusiasm that Emma describes losing.
That neurological distinction is so crucial because it explains the canyon. The loss isn't necessarily of the memory of the holiday.
Yeah.
It's the loss of the capability to initiate the enthusiasm, to lead the walk in the snow, to regulate the emotional response, all symptoms of frontal lobe deterioration. He might remember the ritual, but the ability to drive the tradition is gone.
That is the tragedy of FTD. The person is trapped between their memory of their past competence and their present cognitive limitations. It's the loss of self. And it requires extraordinary adaptation from the family to separate the disease's influence from the individual's intent.
And this brings us to what I believe is the most powerful part of their public story. The extraordinary, persistent public display of unity and grace from the entire Willis family.
It's unparalleled, really. The support system they have built, including his ex-wife, Demi Moore, their 3 adult daughters, and his 2 younger daughters with Emma, it's a profound testament to love and commitment.
Blended families are often complex.
And their collective, unified front against this disease provides an incredible source of strength for Emma, who's the primary caregiver, and it ensures that Bruce is just enveloped in continuous, non-judgmental love.
Their public statements, always issued as a united front, they serve not just to inform but to advocate.
Absolutely. By being open and vulnerable and united, they have done more than just share a private struggle. They have become global advocates for FTD awareness, a condition that is so often misdiagnosed as psychiatric illness because of its early behavioral changes.
They're channeling their private sorrow into public good.
Into a lasting public legacy of awareness and acceptance. And the outpouring of love and respect they receive from the public validates that choice, to be honest.
The journey from being the resourceful, communicative action hero to becoming a global figurehead for FTD awareness is a heavy one, but the resilience and unified grace with which the family is managing this chapter just defines the profound depth of their commitment. So, what does this all mean? Our deep dive into Emma Heming Willis's reflection has, I think, mapped the bittersweet landscape of love, adaptation, and progressive loss. The central theme we've synthesized is that facing an illness like FTD demands a profound structural shift in how families maintain love and tradition.
The foundational lesson is that love, in this context, is active adaptation. It requires accepting that canyon between the past and the present, and using that acceptance to actively construct new traditions to redefine joy.
Rather than exhausting yourself trying to recreate a dynamic that is neurologically impossible.
Exactly. The past is honored, but it cannot be replicated.
And we saw this play out in the smallest details. The emotional distinction between anger at the disease and love for the person. The pragmatic step of taking over the pancakes.
The integration of crying and laughing.
Yes. Emma's vulnerability provides a raw, honest roadmap for others, emphasizing the priority of finding those small pockets of new joy without ever having to deny the reality of the sadness.
Her willingness to share this challenging chapter is a gift to the caregiving community. It validates the complexity of their emotional experience, offering a resilient model for accepting change and actively seeking moments of happiness, even when they're so tightly mixed with sadness. It's a powerful definition of commitment.
That leads us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over as you reflect on your own traditions and connections. We've talked extensively about adaptation and resilience when the structure of a partnership changes fundamentally.
So consider this. When the roles and capabilities within a long-term, loving relationship are entirely rewritten, when the dynamic leader must become the dependent, when the verbal problem solver becomes the silent passenger, how do you sustain the fullness of your love?
That's the question. How do you maintain a profound connection that truly honors the memory of who a person was, while simultaneously accepting, loving, and celebrating the person they are now, in this moment, exactly where they are?
It's a question that probes the absolute depth of human commitment.
And the answer, as the Willis family shows us, lies not in wishing for the past, but in the profound active adaptation, that relentless decision to meet your loved one in the present, no matter how difficult that present is.
That is the definition of enduring love in action.
A powerful thought to leave you with. The greatest act of love is often the simplest act of acceptance.
Well said.
Thank you for joining us for this deeply personal deep dive. We'll see you next time.